difference, then, from the other voice in his experience. The words were outlined in brilliance. There was an edge to them. He felt that any question he might ask her could bring an answer that would lift him out of this flesh world and into something greater. "Why do you test for humans?" he asked. "To set you free." Free. Once men turned their thinking over to machines in hopes that this would set them free, but that only permitted other men with machines to enslave them. "Thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a man's mind," Paul quoted. "Right out of the Butlerian Jihad and the Orange Catholic Bible," she said. "But that OC Bible should have said, 'Thou shalt not make a machine to counterfeit a human mind.' Have you studied the Mentat in your service?" "I've studied with two for Huat." "The Great Revolt took away a crutch," she said. "It forced human minds to develop. Schools were started to train human talents." Bene Gesserit schools. She nodded. "We have two chief survivors of those ancient schools, the Bene Gesserit and the Spacing Guild. The Guild, so we think, emphasizes almost pure mathematics. Bene Gesserit perform another function." "Politics," he said. "Cool lad," the old woman said. She sent a hard glance at Jessica. "I have not told him, your reverence," Jessica said. The revered mother turned her attention back to Paul. "You did that on remarkably few clues." "Politics, indeed. The original Bene Gesserit school was directed by those who saw the need for a thread of continuity in human affairs. They saw there could be no such continuity without separating human stock from animal stock, for breeding purposes." The old woman's words abruptly lost their special sharpness for Paul. He felt an offense against what his mother called his instinct for rightness. It wasn't that the Reverend Mother lied to him. She obviously believed what she had said. It was something deeper, something tied to his terrible purpose. He said, "But my mother tells me that many Bene Gesserit of the schools don't know their ancestry." "Their genetic lines are always in our records," she said. "Your mother knows that either she is of Bene Gesserit descent, or her stock was acceptable in and of itself." "Then why couldn't she know who her parents were?" "Some do, most don't. We might, for example, have wanted to breed her to a close companion or relative and set up a dominant in some genetic trait. We have many reasons." Again, Paul felt the offense against rightness, and he said, "You take a lot on yourselves." The Bene Gesserit stared at him, wondering, did I hear criticism in his voice? "We carry a heavy burden," she said. Paul felt himself coming more and more out of the shock of the test. He levied a measuring stare at her and said, "You say, maybe, I'm the Kwisatz Haderach. What is that? A human Gom Jabbar?" "Paul," Jessica said, "you mustn't take that tone with—" "I'll handle this, Jessica," the old woman said. "Now, lad, do you know about the Truthsayer drug?" "You take it to improve your ability to detect falsehood," he said. "My mother has told me." "Have you ever been in a truth trance?" He shook his head. "No." "The drug's dangerous," she said, "but it gives insight. When a truthsayer's gifted by the drug, she can look into many places in her memory, in her body's memory. We look down so many avenues of the past, but only feminine avenues." Her voice took on a note of sadness. "Yet there is a place where no truthsayer can see. We are repelled by it, terrorized. It is said that a man will come one day to find the gift of the drug in his inward eye. He will look where we cannot, into both feminine and masculine pasts." "Your Kwisatz Haderach?" "Yes, the one who can be many places at once, the Kwisatz Haderach. Many men have tried the drug, so many, but none has succeeded." "They tried and failed? All of them?" "Oh no," she shook her head. "They tried and died." And that is the end of chapter 1. It's a Edie and a Rose. I'm going to take a short break now that chapter 1 is over to get a drink and to get ready for the next chapter. Anybody has any questions or anything like that, feel free to put them in the chat. While I'm reading, obviously, I cannot actually see the chat, so I will try to respond to them when I finish a chapter. For the record, I am drinking my special storyteller juice, which is Pendleton Canadian blended whiskey. Alright, Rose. I'm sorry you're not feeling good. Sorry you're in pain. I'm going to probably do at least the next couple of chapters. It is currently, let's see, 7 o'clock here. I'm probably going to go for another hour or two. You guys let me know if you can hear the music. I'm trying to make sure I've got everything running on that. If nothing else, you don't have to look at my ugly mug. You can always just put me on in the background while you're doing other shit too. So, there's that. This next chapter is fun. I get to do a couple of interesting voices for these characters because they're the villains. Oh, damn. Vicodin. Shit, I'm sorry, Rose. That shit knocks the hell out of me. I literally take that and I'm... I don't know, maybe you could put this on in the background and just fall asleep while listening to me talk. You know, I know it's hard because I have such a sexy voice that people are just going to be like, oh my god, how could I sleep through that? Okay. I've got a 30-second delay, so it's hilarious watching myself in the stream. Alright, let's go ahead and get to it. Chapter 2. To attempt to understand, or start making an understanding of the Muad'Dib, without understanding his mortal enemies, the Harkonnens, is to attempt seeing truth without knowing falsehood. It is the attempt to see the light without knowing darkness. It cannot be. From the Manual of Muad'Dib by the Princess Aurelian. It was a relief globe of a world, partially in shadow, spinning under the impetus of a fat hand that glittered with rings. The globe sat in a free-form stand at one wall of a windowless room. Those other walls presented a patchwork of multicolored scrolls, film books, tapes, and reels. Light glowed in the room from golden balls hanging in mobile suspensor fields. An ellipsoid desk, with a top of jade-pink petrified Elysia wood, stood at the center of the room. Variform suspensor chairs ringed it. 2 of them occupied. In one sat a dark-haired youth of about 16 years, round of face with sullen eyes. The other held a slender, short man with an effeminate face. Both youth and man stared at the globe, and the man half hidden in shadows that was spinning it. A chuckle sounded beside the globe. A basso voice rumbled out of the chuckle. There it is, Piter. The biggest man-trap in all history, and the Duke's headed into its jaws. Is it not a magnificent thing that I, the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, do? Assuredly, Baron, said the man. His voice came out as a tenor with a sweet musical quality. The fat hand descended onto the globe and stopped its spinning. Now all eyes in the room could focus on the motionless surface and see it was the kind of globe made for wealthy collectors or planetary governors of the Empire. It had the stamp of imperial handcraft about it. Latitude and longitude lines were laid with hair-fine platinum wire. The polar caps were insets of the finest cloud milk diamonds. The fat hand moved, tracing details on the surface. "I invite you to observe," the basso voice rumbled. "Observe closely, Piter, and you too, Phaedruotha. My darling, from 60 degrees north to 70 degrees south, these exquisite ripples, their coloring, does it not remind you of sweet caramels? And nowhere do you see blue of lakes or rivers or seas, and these lovely polar caps, so small. Could anyone mistake this place? Arrakis, truly unique, a superb setting for a unique victory." A smile touched Piter's lips. "And to think, Baron, the Padishah Emperor believes he has given the Duke your spice planet. How poignant." "That is a nonsensical statement," the Baron rumbled. "You say this to confuse young Phaedruotha. It is not necessary to confuse my nephew." The sullen-faced youth stirred in his chair, smoothed a wrinkle in his black leotards. He sat upright as a discreet tapping sound at the corner of the wall behind him. Piter unfolded from his chair, crossed to the door, cracked it wide enough to accept a message cylinder. He closed the door, unrolled the cylinder, and scanned it. A chuckle sounded from him. Then another. "Well?" the Baron demanded. "The fool answered us, Baron." "Whenever did an Atreides refuse the opportunity for a gesture?" the Baron asked. "Well, what does it say?" "He is most uncouth, Baron. Addresses you as Harkonnen. No sire et chair cousin, no title, nothing." "It is a good name," the Baron growled, and his voice betrayed his impatience. "What does Leto say?" "He says, your offer of a meeting is refused. I have oft times met your treachery, and this all men know." "And?" "He says, the art of Canley still has admirers in the Empire. He signs it, Duke Leto of Arrakis." Piter began to laugh. "Of Arrakis! Oh my, this is almost too rich." "Be silent, Piter," the Baron said, and the laughter stopped, as though shut off with a switch. "Canley, is it?" the Baron asked. "Vendetta, eh? And he uses the nice old word, so rich in tradition, to be sure I know he means it." "You made the peace gesture," Piter said. "The forms have been obeyed." "For a mentat, you talk too much, Piter." He thought, "I must do away with that one soon. He has almost outlived his usefulness." The Baron stared across the room to his mentat assassin, seeing the feature about him that most people noticed first. The eyes. The shaded slits of blue within blue. The eyes without any white in them at all. A grin flashed across Piter's face. It was like a mask grimace beneath those eyes like holes. "But, Baron, never has revenge been more beautiful. It is to see a plan of the most exquisite treachery, to make Duke Leto exchange Caladan for Dune, and without alternative, because the Emperor orders it. How waggish of you." In a cold voice, the Baron said, "You have flux of the mouth, Piter." "But I am happy, my Baron, whereas you are touched by you are touched by jealousy." "Piter!" Baron. Is it not regrettable you were unable to devise this delicious scheme by yourself?
Someday I will have you strangled, Piter."
Certainly, Baron. If in... But a kind act is never lost. Have you been chewing vermite? Or Sumitra, Piter? "Truth without fear surprises the Baron," Piter said. His face drew down into a caricature of a frowning mask. "Aha! But you see, Baron, I know as a mentat that when you will send the executioner, you will hold back just long enough as I am useful. To move sooner would be